Hello, and welcome to this second episode of 8-Minute Movies. Maybe it's the title, maybe it's the subtitle. Here's the Thing. That's what it's called. Here's the Thing.
Here's the Thing.
We're definitely not Alec Baldwin. Hello, I'm Kieran, and
I am Peter.
That is true. And together we are a circus act. I fly on the trapeze, and Peter holds a baboon. How are you doing this evening, Peter?
I could do with putting this baboon down.
Yeah, it's pretty fucking heavy.
Yes, we've watched the first 8-minute segment, and we have just watched the second 8-minute segment, so we get to find out now, first of all, how I did on my predictions, I suppose.
Mm-hmm. Yes, first of all, I was going to remind everyone about the concept behind the show. But you've preempted me somewhat, so why don't you explain the concept behind the show as a punishment?
Very well. I have not prepared this. We are going to watch The Thing in 8-minute chunks. We are 2 through that, as I just explained, and we're going to discuss each 8-minute chunk. Kieran, being somewhat of an expert in The Thing, favorite film, knows a lot about it, has prepared for this podcast. Me, Kieran's friend who does not know the film nearly so well, but has been forced to see it on several occasions just through proximity to Kieran. I do not know very much, but I'm going to generate some opinions about it as I watch. As part of this, I am also being forced to predict what happens next at the end of each 8-minute chunk.
Wow, that was concise and excellent. Thank you very much. During that, I actually noticed that I'm wearing a The Thing t-shirt, which, may be bordering on dangerously obsessed. I honestly didn't put this on deliberately or anything.
Yeah, it's just that you lay your hand on any one t-shirt in your collection, there's like a 50-50 chance it's The Thing t-shirt, really.
Oh, dear. So, Peter, what did you think of the first 8 minutes of The Thing that we watched precedently to this?
Yes, so I enjoyed it. I liked how it slowly weaved in these little mysteries, and thought it was nice and tense. Good use of music. Very good start. Good.
Now, I have some facts for you and a little bit of information. Previously, we spoke about some of John Carpenter's other films briefly. His Apocalypse trilogy came up in the last podcast. So let's explore those a little bit before we get started.
Okay.
All right, so The Thing is the first of the Apocalypse trilogy, and we'll get to that later. Mm-hmm. The next film in this series is Prince of Darkness, a 1987 supernatural horror film. And I'm just going to go with these synopsis that I'm just stealing from Google. A priest, played by Donald Pleasance, finds a vial filled with slime in a church basement. He gathers together scholars and scientists to investigate it, who eventually learn that the strange liquid is the essence of Satan. The slime begins to seep out and starts picking them off one by one while trying to cause the apocalypse.
Okay.
That's the synopsis. I like that it's got Donald Pleasance in it. John Carpenter does seem to like working with Pleasance. He was in Halloween, of course. It's a real shame that he isn't in The Thing, because Donald Pleasance can play someone who's mad very, very well. I wonder why he actually wasn't cast for this. Yeah, in the film, he's the only person who takes the threat of the mysterious floor slime seriously all the way through, and he just gets more and more intense as the movie goes on. The creature effects in it sort of hold up. Like the creature effects hold up well, actually. The other effects are a little bit flaky now, like a character whose head gets chopped off and then sort of comedically pops their head back on.
Okay.
Because it's a scary fluid, it's often doing things that water, which it obviously isn't capable of doing, like running up walls or splashing on the ceiling. And it's very clear that they've just filmed it upside down and turned the footage upside down in the camera.
Yes, that is how I'd do it.
Yeah. Another thing that I noticed was there's a lot of shots where some sort of spectral force is leaving people through their mouths, and I guess the only way they could do it at the time was to shoot them side on and have just some smoke coming out of something that's behind their mouth on the side, but it looks like, yeah. So that effect has not aged particularly well. But there are some that are excellent, like there's a bit with a magic mirror. Maybe we'll get to Prince of Darkness at some point in this series.
I'm pretty sure I have never seen that.
Yeah, you might not have. Or the next film and the final one in the Apocalypse trilogy is In the Mouth of Madness. Have you seen that one?
The name doesn't really ring a bell, apart from when you mentioned it before.
Well, it's a 1994 horror film, and the synopsis is a horror novelist called Sutter Kane goes missing, and an insurance investigator played by Sam Neill starts investigating and trying to retrieve an as-yet-to-be-released manuscript and find the writer, which leads him to a mysterious supernatural town in New Hampshire. There's lots and lots of Stephen King allusions in that film. All of Sutter Kane's books have Stephen King-style covers. His name sounds quite a lot like Stephen King.
Okay.
He's obsessed with a small town in New Hampshire. I mean, Stephen King has Maine. In this film, it's called Hobbs End.
Sorry, what year did you say that came out?
1994. So that's the more recent of the three.
Okay, so was that filmed pre or post Jurassic Park?
It must have been post for Sam Neill, because Jurassic Park was 1993, wasn't it?
Yeah, I was just trying to figure out where it was in Sam Neill's career.
Yeah, he is very good. Sam Neill, again, is someone who can play someone going insane very, very convincingly, and he does it in The Mouth of Madness. And he keeps experiencing strange things, and he thinks they're all part of a publicity stunt by the publishing house. But eventually it becomes clear to him that everything is real and everything is going wrong. I quite enjoy it because it has a deeply nihilistic ending, like The Thing does, which we will get to, I imagine, at some point.
So I'm not sure I've seen that film either.
Yeah, no, you probably haven't, given that you were raised in a cave as an experiment until the age of 31.
I feel like these films that in particular are not particularly commonly seen films.
I don't know, actually. In The Mouth of Madness was very, very popular.
Yeah, but I was 12. I was 12.
All right, yeah, it probably wasn't 18.
Right. So, yes, is it just the bleakness of where these films go is that why it's the Apocalypse trilogy, or is there some other underlying reason why it's got that name?
I think that's the case, but also I think the world ends at the end of all three of them, which,
well, question mark, right?
Ambiguously about The Thing, but again, we'll get to that. There's a sort of Lovecraftian cosmic horror feel to In the Mouth of Madness, which I quite like as well.
Okay, well, it's got a similar name to a Lovecraft story, I guess.
That's true. The only other film I have noted down here that we mentioned before is not part of the trilogy, but it's a film that John Carpenter did before The Thing, and it's called The Fog.
Ah, yes, The Fog.
You haven't seen The Fog, I assume?
I don't think so, no.
Given the other films that I've described to you so far, what do you think happens in The Fog?
Oh, I don't know. There's a fog and everyone dies. So that's basically where I would guess this goes.
So The Fog was a 1980 film, and here's the synopsis. As a California coastal town prepares to commemorate its centenary, the local reverend stumbles across a dark secret about the town's founding, and a mysterious fog descends upon the village, and people start to die. So, that's not too far from what you get.
Yeah, that's what I said. There's a fog and people die. That's
Are you writing these synopses for Google?
Apparently I could.
Perhaps off topic, but I did enjoy reading the Google synopsis for GoldenEye, which was clearly written by someone who's never seen GoldenEye.
Good.
It's just broad strokes about James Bond is here and he saves the day. I'm like, did you see the film? Okay.
Saves the day from and or joins up with GoldenEye, who is a person or possibly an organization.
Yes, the synopsis is about as good as one of my secondary school book reports. Spoiler alert, I didn't read the books either. Yeah, so in the fog, 100 years after the town is founded, a secret about the founding is discovered. The founders of the town turn out to be wreckers who lured a boat loaded with gold to the shore to crash, and then they used the gold to fund the town. And 100 years later, a mysterious fog covers the town, and the ghosts of the crew of the ship move through it, hunting down the descendants of the town founders. When you put it like that, it sounds a little bit like the plot of Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah, I suppose so.
But I don't remember, but I think there's almost no decapitation in Pirates of the Caribbean.
Were any pirates in this film?
In The Thing?
No, not in The Thing. I'm pretty sure there aren't any pirates in The Thing. Well, who knows? The Norwegians, maybe.
I don't want to spoil it for you, but I don't think there are any pirates in The Thing. No, they're not pirates, but they are really. They have hooks for hands and whatnot.
Okay.
Like, they don't say anything, but if they did say something, they'd fucking say yar. Yeah, as we brought up last time, the leader of the pirates, Captain Blake, I said pirates, they're not pirates, they're sailors. The leader of the sailors is played by Rob Bottin, who did the special effects, the creature effects for The Thing. It's quite a good, thrilling zombie film. It's quite a tight movie. It's sort of concentrating on the descendants as they all get picked off one by one. It's got a little twist ending, which is kind of exciting.
Cool.
Yeah, so that's everything we have about the films that we mentioned last time. And you actually had some questions for me last time, which I didn't immediately have answers for. So I've spent the weeks since we last spoke scouring libraries and basically just Googling the answers to all of those questions you had for me. So are you ready? Are you ready for the long delayed answers to the questions you asked me?
I am very ready.
Right. Do film unions have rules for the orders of credits? Yes, they really do.
Okay.
They absolutely do, especially for opening credits. Your order, I know you don't have your list of credits to hand, but the order generally boils down to the major companies involved, which is interesting in this case because they had to get special permission from Universal to skip putting them at the start of the film.
But they still put the name, though, right?
I believe so.
Yeah.
You've got top billing, so that's going to be Kurt Russell and Keith David, your prime stars. Supporting cast, casting director, which I don't think they had. Music composer.
That was near the beginning, yeah.
It was, yeah. Costume designer. Associate producers. Editors. We definitely had one of those. Production designer. Director of photography, and I remember that came up because it was Dean Cundy. Executive producer, writers, and finally director. So
yeah,
I was wrong because I thought the director would be higher billed, but no, basically last in the list.
Yeah, I feel like it wasn't quite in that order because from what I remember, all the producer roles came in a line. But yeah, that sounds approximately like the order that it appeared in. Sure.
Yeah, I mean, plus it might have changed in the last 30 years.
That's true.
Is the National Science Institute a real thing? I said it was, and I was completely wrong. The United States has something of the equivalent. It's called the National Science Foundation. It was founded in 1950 and exists to promote the progress of science, which sounds like a 50s B-movie organization, but cool. They do have a number of bases in Antarctica, so that's legit.
Presumably the National Science Foundation or whatever it is did not want to be associated with this.
Or they just didn't ask. I mean,
or they just didn't ask.
There actually is something called the National Science Institute, but it was founded in 1994 and closed in a cryptocurrency scandal in 2018, so it doesn't seem relevant here. How is Norge pronounced?
Okay, come on then.
It turns out it just means Norway in Norwegian, which is fair enough to write on the side of one of your helicopters, I suppose. Yes. And it's pronounced Norge.
Okay.
I practiced that a lot. I hope it's right. If you're Norwegian and you're listening to this, write in. And we've got one final question. Why can't helicopters fly upside down?
Right. Okay.
We both agreed that they couldn't, and it turns out they can. It is possible, though only briefly and usually only done during stunt shows, because the main problem with flying upside down is that the rotors slice through the tail during the flip, and then you don't have a helicopter anymore. You have a flying ball of debris.
I'm pretty sure the whole thing of it being just extremely difficult to control upside down must be a thing as well.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think they do it routinely at all,
Yeah.
no. But it is technically possible.
Okay.
Right. That's all the questions we have time for. That's not how I should have said that. So I guess we have to move on to the meat of the podcast,
Hmm.
where we talk about the thing, or rather the next 8 minutes of it. Minutes 8 to 16 if you're playing along at home, in which case, why are you?
Yes. So I suppose the way that we should do this is go through the next few things that happen and see how I did with my predictions.
Yeah, absolutely. So just for the listener at home, I'm going to remind everyone of what your options you gave last time were. And we had the two options of your what happens next as fly off and crash or scuffle and shoot. So I was going to ask you which you felt was right, but you've watched it now, so you know.
Yeah, last time I think I said I preferred fly off and explode.
Yeah, you did. You did lean towards that one, which unfortunately
Yeah.
is not the right answer.
Well, let's go through what actually happens because I'm going to argue that both of those answers are half right.
There's no half points around here. There are. I gave you a whole bunch of them during that game we played last time. Okay, I will now read through the headings like we did last time of the little 30 seconds of action between each shot, and we can talk about anything that comes up in them if we like. Again, this is not like a commentary podcast. This is just some mad bullshit I thought up once and thought would be fun.
And is.
Oh, good. Thank God. All right. So we start at 8 minutes in with the dog jumps up on Bennings. The pilot drops a grenade. Right. These grenades don't seem like the best idea to me, to be honest. I mean, it slips out of his gloved hand, which is fair enough, I guess. I mean, he is wearing like cold weather gloves. But what was he planning to do with it anyway? I mean, was he just going to kill all the men standing by the dog as well?
It's an interesting question. I for one, did not remember a grenade mishap happening in this film. That's just something that I'd completely forgotten happened. I did sort of remember a helicopter explosion.
Yeah.
Which is, I guess why I thought there might be a helicopter crash near the beginning of the film. But no, the helicopter explosion was caused by a grenade mishap rather than a piloting mishap.
There is a helicopter crash in the Thing prequel.
Maybe I was getting them mixed up because I have seen the Thing Pringle, the Thing. I have seen the Thing prequel.
I'm leaving that in.
Fair enough, really.
The Thing Pringle. Yeah. Also, fair enough. I mean, like he's throwing his grenades to get the dog. He drops it and then he starts digging for it in the snow, which strikes me as a very bad idea.
Is that what was happening? I didn't think that he was digging for it in the snow. I thought that he was trying to bury it under additional snow as a kind of last desperate measure to handle this problem.
No, he drops it and then he starts scuffling in the hole where it's thing to try and retrieve it.
Okay.
Presumably to then throw it. But like grenades have fuses in the measured with times measured in the seconds. Yeah. So I'm no military man at all, but I imagine the advice given if you drop a grenade by your feet is just run the fuck away right now.
Yeah, you just run away, wouldn't you? Really?
The helicopter explodes, killing the pilot. While he's digging around in there, you actually get a shot where you can see that it's not really a grenade, it's a thermite canister or a thermite bomb, which sort of makes more sense for them to have lying around, I suppose.
Okay.
You would use thermite to melt things out of ice, and indeed they do in the 1950s Thing film. The gunner shouts at them in Norwegian.
All right. So a thought I had here is that it's fairly well known, at least these days, that a lot of people in Scandinavian countries have extremely good English. It's very common to be good at the language and very common to at least just have a little bit on hand. And I wonder how true that was back in 1982 and how likely it was that they'd find the one Norwegian who couldn't just shout something like "dog bad" at the base crew here.
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't have statistics on English language learning in Norway in the 1980s.
Mm-hmm.
Damn my lack of preparation. But I know we shouldn't really be using the prequel as a primary source here because it came out 30 years after this film. But in that, they kind of try and fill this hole by him being literally the only Norwegian in the base who doesn't speak any English at all.
Right, okay. So they do actually address that, do they? I didn't realize that they...
Yeah, I mean, I feel like they're trying to backfill a bit, maybe, but anyway, even if you do exclude it, I think in the book it's kind of implied that he can speak English, but he's having a real bad day.
Okay.
So he's just turned up and he's in a panic, and like his best friend has just been exploded, and he's got a gun and he's got to kill that dog before it kills everyone there. So it's kind of implied or hand waved away in the book that he knows at least some English but isn't cognizant of it right now.
Makes sense.
Fun fact, he is actually spoiling the plot of the film for you if you speak a little Norwegian.
Oh really? Okay, that's a good point. Actually, I didn't even think to wonder what he was saying. So what is he saying?
He says, "Get the hell away! It's not a dog. It's a thing. It's imitating a dog. It's not real. Get away, idiots!" And then he shoots.
Okay.
So I can't confirm this, but it seems that in Norway he's actually been dubbed over in Czech. So.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
Yes, yeah, because otherwise in Norway they would have dubbed the film into Norwegian, and he's speaking Norwegian. So apparently, if they just need another country language, they'll dub it into something else, like chosen more or less at random.
Okay.
Apparently, the thing was in Czech. I like I say, I haven't been able to double check that.
I get it.
Oh dear. Moving on. The gunner shoots at the dog. Bennings is shot in the leg.
Sorry, I was just all I was going to say there, although it's maybe a bit too early to really be having this discussion, is how effective do we know guns to be on things? I guess is the question.
It comes up a little in the script that and people who've had experience with dealing with things know that a gun won't stop it, but it will slow it down. So if you've got one, especially if it's imitating something, like if it's imitating a dog and you shoot it, it's going to plausibly act like a dog until it can no longer do that.
Right.
So there's an aspect to the things in this film which doesn't necessarily get carried through to the prequel, and that's they don't attack you in their native form unless there's no one else around. Like when they only do it when they're not observed, when they're confident that they can get away with the transformation, the attack, and then converting you.
Yeah.
So if it's in the image of a dog as it's running, then when they shoot it, that will either make it be, "Oh no, I'm a dog, I'm hurt," or it will force it to transform.
Right.
The men dive for cover as Gary breaks the glass. The gunner pursues the dog. Gary shoots the man in the eye.
Is Gary aiming for the eye. It seems like Gary would know what he's doing with a gun.
Yeah, in his backstory, he's an old army man, and he was a sharpshooter, and
Right.
has sort of come to this base to retire peacefully.
Right.
And yes, he probably could have shot to wound this guy, but he is an army person with army instincts sort of baked in. And
Right.
the sort of vibe is that here's a man attacking his men, you've got to take him out as quickly as possible.
Mm.
It's I quite like there's a little twitch from the corpse, which is just kind of gross.
Yeah. So on how I did, I think, yeah, like I said, I think both of the things that I said half happened in a way. Okay, fine. Yes, that was
in case you missed it, every time one of us says the word thing and it's not the title of the film, the podcast, or the creature itself, we have a bell to punish the other person with.
So I think both situations happened in a way, but not entirely. So there was a scuffle with one of the Norwegians, and shooting, and there was indeed some sort of helicopter mishap, but it was the helicopter exploding because of a grenade rather than them taking off in the helicopter and it crashing.
Yeah, I'm not sure personally I would give you that since you specifically called it a crash, but let's let the listener at home decide. The men go to check Bennings. I think it's a nice touch here that MacReady, even while he was diving for safety in the snow, kept his scotch safe.
I didn't notice that.
Yeah, it doesn't spill a drop, and then he gives it to Bennings, who takes a crafty swig from it.
Right.
Gary inspects his handiwork. Gary comes out in the snow to check that the man is dead, and he is very dead.
Yes, extremely.
The men put out the helicopter fire by stomping on it and spraying it with fire extinguishers. Clark steadies the unsettled dog.
So, something I've always wondered is that if you were in this situation and you were trying to think, why on earth would these Norwegians be going after and shooting this dog? Would it not cross your mind that the dog might have some sort of terrible disease and needs urgently to be put down before he spreads the disease?
Oh, absolutely. But if you look at it from their perspective, you've got to remember that they were just having an ordinary morning, and the whole world has gone strange. Like, a helicopter flew in, shot some people, shot a dog, there were explosions. The dog seems fine. Like, it seems like a perfectly ordinary dog. Spoilers. Yeah, there's something else about the dog as well, which we'll get to in a little while.
I guess I'm just saying maybe I'd put the dog somewhere else.
Yeah, that is a mistake that comes back to haunt them.
Yeah.
The dog here is Jed. He was their sort of primary filming dog. He's a wolf dog, which is a wolf Malamute hybrid. This is his first film role, and he appears in some other Disney films, White Fang and White Fang 2. They would probably be better films if they featured shape-shifting aliens, but maybe I'm just biased.
I think you're just biased.
Might just be biased. Richard Mazur here is playing Clark, and he was most interested when given the cast list in playing Clark because he thought there was something interesting about him, about the way that he's connected more to the animals of the base than the people. I mean, Clark is another person here who you see who doesn't seem comfortable in the company of the men of Outpost 31. First goddamn week of winter. So MacReady there is summarizing for us that maybe this is a bad time for this to be happening.
Yeah, I wasn't sure what to take away from that line. Was he implying that bad stuff tends to happen during winter in the base, and like bad stuff is already happening. I'm not sure where I'm going with this sentence.
I think it could be a little of both. That Antarctic winter is very bad. Citation needed. But I think what he's implying here is that if anything crazy was to happen, the worst time for it to happen is during Antarctic winter because they're so isolated. I think it's another way of just sort of underscoring the distance they have from everybody else.
Right.
Fun Antarctic winter fact, it's tradition now in Antarctic bases when the summer crews leave and the winter crews are settling in to watch The Thing on the first night.
Okay. I did not know that.
Bennings gets stitched up. Now, did you... Bennings get stitched up kind of sounds like a Cockney phrase, maybe. But it's literally true, though, in this case. Did you notice anything interesting about Doc Copper in this shot?
No.
He's got a little nose ring. Like, you can only really see it once you're looking for it because most of the time it looks kind of skin-colored. I mean, I honestly didn't notice this until I got the thing on Blu-ray, which was slightly higher quality. But yeah, he's got a nose ring in.
Interesting. Yeah, I'd never noticed that before.
Yeah, it was just a choice of the actors to add a little flair to the character. Windows calls for help on the radio, but they can't reach anyone. Now, this, I think, is, again, setting up their total isolation from everybody else.
Yeah, and it's always useful in this kind of thing when you do have a watertight reason for being out of contact with everyone. I was wondering how you actually do communicate in Antarctica, or at least how you would have done in 1982, and whether there would actually be reliable methods to communicate in this sort of situation or not.
In the 80s, it would have just been radio, of course. And I can see situations where there are storms which are so powerful that you can't transmit through them. I'm not an expert, of course, but I think one of the things you can do with radio is transmit further than... is that it might be easier to transmit to someone that's much further away than something that's close by.
Right.
In the script, there are two further things here which I think got cut for time, and that's they don't have a geostationary satellite which would let them stay in contact all the time because there isn't value to the National Science Institute in putting one above their Antarctic base.
Yeah.
And also a sort of... they don't really follow through with it in the film at all, but the sort of implication that Windows maybe isn't the best radio operator in the world. Sure. I mean, you do see him asleep later on, but
yes.
Yeah, I don't think he's maybe the best at his job. I don't know. The men discuss the situation. So I think this is an interesting way of setting up all their little personalities because you haven't really seen them all talking to each other until this point.
Yeah.
Knowles is there being irreverent. I mean, he skates in and says maybe we're at war with Norway.
Yeah, the roller skates sure are a choice.
Yeah, I can't find any information about them. I don't know whether they're a choice of the actor or whether they...
It is interesting that some are kind of portrayed as more friendly with each other. Some are portrayed more that strictly colleagues or don't like each other much. You do get a sense of some of the relationships going on there.
Yeah, exactly. And I thought it was also interesting to see Palmer just getting high in front of everybody else. David Clennon, the actor, he came up with Palmer's backstory with John Carpenter, and they sort of wanted to get across the impression that he'd gotten out of rehab, and now he's an engineer who's being trained as a pilot, and he's just trying to get his life back on track.
Right.
Which may not pan out for him overall. The men decide to go and help the Norwegians. Now, I was thinking about the synopsis I read out in the first episode, and how it says that the camp doctor like helps them in the fight, and I was like, really? I mean, I'm sure, but no, it's really true. If Doc Copper hadn't insisted they go to the Norwegian base, they would have had so much less information about what was going on. I mean, they wouldn't have known that there was something suspect with the dog, and it probably would have assimilated them all while they slept one at a time. So, yeah, good on you, Doc Copper. Well done. They find kerosene cans in the helicopter wreckage. They decide to fly to the Norwegian base in the helicopter.
So this is just two people who have gone in the helicopter, right?
Yeah, it's the two people who are flying are MacReady and Doc Copper, who are going to the Norwegian base to check things out. MacReady is unconvinced that this is a great idea because he says, if we get caught in a whiteout, we'll die. And fun fact, while they were filming in Alaska, they did get caught in a whiteout while flying in the helicopter. And yeah, John Carpenter was saying, we couldn't see anything. It was like being inside a white ball. And the helicopter pilot was like, well, what we'll do is we'll land and we'll sleep here in the helicopter overnight. But fortunately, just after that, the storm cleared. They managed to get away. In the script, they briefly consider taking the dogs, but it's too far to get there and back, especially with the storm coming in, which they're constantly mentioning the threat of the storm at this point.
Okay.
The dog lurks under a table. There's nice foreshadowing here, I think, of like, A, something is wrong with the dog, and B, that the camp staff have kind of forgotten about it.
Yeah.
Like, the dog's just under the table, nobody's paying any attention to it. Everyone else is too caught up in what might have happened to the Norwegians, what might they have done to their own people.
Yeah.
Nobody's really thinking about the dog.
The first time that the music returns as well, I noticed.
Yeah, that's true. The leitmotif, is that right?
I guess a leitmotif would usually be more melodic and used in lots of different ways and kind of recontextualized in lots of different ways, like how you get the Force theme in Star Wars, just used in a lot of different kind of ways and like inserted in different contexts. This is more just it's used kind of in the same way, and it's kind of the same bit of music every time that it crops up, so I wouldn't quite call it a leitmotif.
Oh damn! I was hoping to get another musical term used in the correct context point, but
no,
not this time.
Keep trying.
The helicopter takes off. So, interestingly, as you pointed out, there's two people in the helicopter: MacReady and Doc Copper. MacReady's in the pilot seat and the Doc is in the co-pilot seat next to him. Did you notice that he was carefully arranged so that you can't see his face?
No.
This is because the Doc in the co-pilot seat is really the actual helicopter pilot helping Kurt Russell get the helicopter off the ground. Just after he takes off, he actually gives Kurt Russell full solo control of the helicopter, and you can see it wobble in midair as he does that.
Nice.
Fun fact, after all these exciting trips in helicopters, John Carpenter became a qualified helicopter pilot.
All right. Did that ever become of use in any subsequent shoots?
I hope so.
Right. Sorry, I've got a note here as well, which I don't know what to do with, which is just danger tail rotor. It was just on the screen for so long that I wrote it down as a note.
I imagine if a helicopter around you is on, you probably want to stay as clear from all of those little spinny bits as possible.
Yeah, the sign almost feels like overkill, really, because, I'm not getting anywhere near anything that even looks like it might spin.
Sliced to ribbons. We cut to nighttime in the camp. Knowles is listening to music. Now, he's listening to Superstitious, and that's what they got in the theatrical release, but they had licensing issues for the home video release, and it got replaced with One Chain Don't Make No Prison by the Four Tops.
All right. I think you have told me that one before, which just goes to show the depths of facts that I've absorbed over the years about this film.
I feel like you probably remembered that one more because it was about music.
Yes, that's true. That is my thing.
Did you notice that Knowles doesn't actually turn down the volume after he's told to?
I do remember that, although the way that I remember it, and I was wondering whether it was just the way that the video that we were watching is normalized. The way that I remembered that bit is that it actually gets turned up.
Maybe normalization. I mean, he doesn't touch the controls. So.
Yeah. But yes.
We pan through the empty halls of the base.
I think it's just an interesting series of shots here, because without the context, it seems like an almost weird overemphasis on the emptiness of the base at that point.
Yeah. The good thing about doing this podcast is it's drawing my attention as someone who loves this film and is very familiar with this film to shots and things which normally I glaze over, or I have the thing on as in the background and I'm doing something else, so I only really pay attention to it when someone's talking. And this silent pan through empty laboratories and empty kitchens, and it really does sort of ramp up the why are they doing this? Why 30 seconds of solid footage of empty rooms? As you say, out of context, it's kind of baffling, but I think it really works. The dog appears looking for something. Jed the dog was a very smart dog. He was very good at not looking at the camera or the cameramen during the long dolly shots here. So as they move through, so he has to walk up the corridor, look through, stop, look through a door, move up the corridor again, stop, look through a door, enter the room. And they do that all in one shot, which for a dog is incredible. Apparently this is like the third or fourth take. So once he knew what they wanted, could just get it done. Probably a shape-changing alien instead of a dog. Maybe? I don't know. We see a silhouette of a man on the wall. The dog walks into the room with him. Right. Whose shadow do you think it is on the wall?
Okay, so who I think that is the silhouette of is Norris.
Right. There's you've struck at the nerve of a lot of controversy there. People think it's either Norris or Palmer.
Okay.
Because I guess of the sort of curly hair.
Yeah.
Both of whom turn out in the film later to be things. So, I mean, it's a safe bet, isn't it?
Yeah. What's your opinion at this point?
Without using all of my accumulated thing knowledge, I think it's Norris.
Okay.
I think it's Norris's silhouette. It's actually Dick Warlock's silhouette.
Okay.
Dick Warlock is the stunt coordinator, and I need to get it out of the way now. He has the best name.
It is. It's quite a name, isn't it?
I want a name that implies the existence of genital sorcery.
Yes, it's the name of possibly a stunt coordinator, possibly a porn star.
It's funny you brought that up because he actually was a porn star in early life.
And just didn't change the name. Right.
No, that's not true. I'm sorry. That might actually be slander.
Yeah.
No, he wasn't. Of course, he was an actor and a stuntman. He's most famous for playing Michael Myers in Halloween 3. You haven't seen Halloween, have you?
I think I've seen some of the first Halloween in the background.
Michael Myers is the bad man.
Okay.
Dick Warlock was Kurt Russell's personal stuntman for over 25 years. So that's explaining his presence in this film.
Okay.
He retired in 2002.
But why wouldn't they just use the silhouette of whoever it actually was supposed to be?
That's a good point. So that you didn't know who was infected at this point in the film. It was a deliberate choice to not use any of the main cast.
Okay.
So you wouldn't recognize them.
Well, then guessing based on silhouette is just useless.
Apparently, John Carpenter used David Clennon, who plays Palmer, as the silhouette, but his silhouette was too recognizable, so they replaced him with Dick Warlock in a pickup shot.
Fair enough. Well, we know that it's someone with hair, so it's not Bennings. It's not the Doctor.
Yeah, that's true. It's not Charles either.
That's true. It's not Charles.
So we've narrowed it down to 9 people. So Here's an interesting thing that I'm going to ask you from now on. So prepare your brain. This is I want your infection timeline as stuff is happening. So who's
Okay.
infected and when. So keep an eye out for that sort of stuff.
So I'm going to say at this point, it's heavily implied, at least, that whoever we think that silhouette is now infected.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to say Norris is infected at this point.
We cut to the helicopter swooping across the ice, and we stop. And it's a weird place to leave it, but that's how I've chosen to do this podcast. So that's where it ends. A helicopter flying above ice.
Yes.
What do you think happens next, Peter?
I'm fairly confident with this one. So unless it just immediately goes back to the base again and more stuff happens there, which I don't think it does, then we're going to see the helicopter land at the base, and we're going to see that it has been on fire. It maybe bits of it still are on fire, but it's mostly out, and it looks like it's pretty wrecked. That's what I think happens next.
So you're saying they land at the wrecked Norwegian camp?
Yes.
All right. Well, I've made a note of that, and we'll check next time how correct you are. Ooh. So, as is tradition now, one time is a tradition, I must ask you how you enjoyed those 8 minutes of film.
I did enjoy those 8 minutes of film, yes. I think it just did some good additional establishment of the characters. I think I think the nice thing about it is that it just doesn't immediately get into things going bad. It tries to restore a kind of semblance of normality to things, and we just kind of see all of the crew acting kind of normal for a bit, apart from that they've just had this weird situation happen with just little tense moments hinting at you there's just something odd about the dog, but not telling you what that is yet.
Good. I agree with everything you said. So, I guess we'll watch the next 8 minutes next time. So, let's discuss where we can be found. Well, usually we say where we can be found on the internet. Where can you be found in real life? Where are you right now? What does your phone say your GPS coordinates are? No, this is a terrible idea. Why am I doing it? Where can you be found on the internet, Peter?
Yeah, I like this more. I can be found on Twitter. My username is Kestrel Pi. That's Kestrel like the bird, and Pi like the irrational number.
Oh, you've practiced that. And I can be found on Twitter as Kieran J. Walsh, again, because that is simply my name for identity theft reasons. I should get a handle. Anyway, it's been lovely having you, and I will see you next time. Goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye.